All right, we are live. It's Thursday morning on February 16th, 2023, and we are working on H66 again today, hopefully to vote it out. But prior to that, Austin Davis, who testified on this bill a couple of weeks ago, asked to have some follow-up testimony. He provided a letter to us all last week, and he just wanted the opportunity to discuss the bill again. And so here we are. Welcome back.
Thank you. And I think in addition to the letter, you should see a side-by-side I kind of put together quickly this morning under today's date, correct, Ron? In the
Is
website?
that on our website yet, Ron?
Yes.
Okay.
You'll see those two documents. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you again, following up on February 3rd. I think I just want to reiterate some of the elements of the letter and just kind of have an opportunity for discussion and questions if desired. I would draw attention to the comparison. So H107 was what was passed in 2019. It failed a veto override by one vote. And so, we thought that that would be a reasonable comparison in terms of legislation. And you can see by the side-by-side, it really only focused on administration, benefit design, benefit amount, eligibility, and employer size. And you can see that some of the elements that I outlined in the February 14th letter are more reflected in H107, which was passed by the legislature in 2019. I think it's primarily draw attention actually starting from the bottom to employer size. That legislation envisioned moving employer size for the 21 VSA 471 protections to 10 employer that has 10 individuals from 15 that's in statute, well as this legislation looks at any person employing one or more individuals in Vermont, which really does create a situation in which a employer can kind of see their number of employees reduced by 50% very quickly. I also think that eligibility is touched on in the H107. That looked at the earned dollar equivalent of 675 hours at minimum wage. I believe that would come out to be, I have it in a separate folder here, about $8,896.50 of wages, which would make the individual eligible for a benefit of $6,326.40. I think that actually is a more apt indicator of attachment to the workforce, the language used back in 2019. And it's worth noting that, to my knowledge, because I've been doing this for a little bit, the Department of Taxes and the Department of Labor do not collect any information on hours. They collect information on remuneration. We've had that in many conversations over the years where it would actually be a lot easier for us to have the economic data that we all want if we knew what the number of hours were combined with an amount of remuneration. Instead, we generally just know what the W-2s from each employee say. So that would be a suggestion that we highlighted in the letter, and some additional language we point to in the form of your previously passed bill. Feel free to jump in at any point if you have questions, folks, just so we can get them while they're hot. I think also looking at the benefit design, we outlined in our letter that we thought starting small and potentially building from there makes sense. In the version that was passed in 2019, you'll see that there's a different amount of leave for different types of leave. And then also there was envisioned kind of an opt-out provision or an opt-in provision for different types of leave. And then finally, administration of the benefit. The H107 envisioned using a private insurer I think you folks heard from the treasurer's office yesterday that it could be an astronomical amount of money to set up such a benefit program, and that this would be unlike anything they've ever done. It would double the size of their office. We do think that if you folks want to move in an expedient manner towards this benefit, it might be easiest to go with outside knowledge, an outside firm that already does such a thing. If the treasurer's office is to hire upwards of 50 new employees, this is a very difficult labor market. It'd be hard to find those folks, and it will come at a great expense. I think that, what you could see as a prospective avenue would be to and place this in the charge of DFR to act as an agent of the state. DFR can go forward with a request for proposals, eventually pick a final recipient of the grant or of the contract with the state, and then handle any appeals or any advocacy for individuals who are looking for benefits. That could be a quicker, cheaper way to get at this, and that potential $100 million can either stand up a trust fund or a special fund, as was envisioned in H107, to provide some rainy day money and potentially get at that pro-cyclical style of benefit that we outlined in the letter as well. So I think that that's true. I think I'd pause here to also just note that I highly recommend that this committee consider advocating for the bill to move to the House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development after passage here. I think that's a great place for it to go, to the fact that the most comparable programs we have in state government are our unemployment insurance program and our workers' comp insurance program. Those programs are both under the jurisdiction of the House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development, and House Commerce has done a good job in the last decade and even earlier than that in making sure that the trust fund can pay out benefits during times of economic crisis when needed, and the burden on ratepayers is not beyond what is necessary in the good times. So I think that would be a great next step if, after passage of this committee, that bill could have some time in that committee to discuss that kind of program development. I'll stop there for any questions. I know I've kind of already gone through a lot, and I've provided most of this to you folks already in both the 514 letter and the side-by-side comparison.
Representative Elder.
Thank you for your testimony, Austin. I will admit to having concerns about this bill's plans to create a new division at the treasurer's office. I want to be clear. I'm going to, support this bill as it comes out of this committee because it's such an important concept, and I know there's work that's left to be done down the road. But based on testimony we've received, I had concerns about that. And as I kind of alluded to at one point, I'm thinking about what DOL needs from the Agency of Digital Services to do what they need to do. And I'm conscious that in some states, such a program might be run by a similar or related software. Maybe it would be a DFR, maybe it would be a DOL. But there's $5.5 million in a current ask from DOL for unemployment insurance modernization. And that is not the kind of money we're talking about to set up this organization, but it's a big chunk of change we're using to modernize that. And I would, for myself, second the notion that the Commerce Committee might have some insight in terms of the capabilities that such a modernization would bring to that division, and whether there is any overlap of expenditure between the kind of systems that we'll start up in a newly created division at the Treasurer's Office and the kind of work ADS is currently considering to modernize our ancient DOL mainframe. My concern is that I don't want to miss an opportunity to unify the Agency of Digital Services efforts in both these areas. And I'm concerned about the potential really expanded size of the treasurer's office, as well as them undertaking something, as we heard yesterday, that that is wholly different from anything they do now. I do understand some of that, and I'm also sympathetic to a third party program manager. But as I say, I'm going to support this bill as it comes out of this committee because it includes so many important elements, and it has more to go on its journey. But I did want to say that I feel that our friends in the Commerce Committee could offer us some helpful perspective. And so I appreciate you bringing that up. And I did want to, I was looking a little into the modernization that's happening at DOL just because I can't help but see some nexus between those projects.
I just add on to that I think that this bill envisions self-employed individuals being able to receive insurance. That's a difficult conversation that Commerce has been having for some time around allowing self-employed individuals into the UI system. There's numerous issues around potential fraud or adverse selection in that, especially with self-employed individuals can jump in and out of conducting commerce. So, I think that's something that Commerce is ready, willing, and able, I'd assume, willing to discuss. And they've had a significant amount of experience looking at benefits programs for self-employed individuals as a result of some of the work they did during the pandemic around the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, or PUA, which was stood up by the federal government. It's typically a FEMA-run program, and it got more use than it ever has, as well as some of the work they've done around economic recovery grants. So I would suggest that would be a great next stop to just understand some of those finer details around self-employment, because they've been working on them for a long time.
No, thank you. I think this proposal, you were comparing it to H107, and I would just ask you to take a half a step aside and remember that what you are comparing it to was not what passed out of this committee in 2019. It's what passed out of after all of the miles it went through to go to all the committees it went through. It was the end product of our process.
Certainly, and I think this committee, did see it when it came back from the Senate and signed off on it, supported it. Members of this committee worked hard to ultimately try to override a veto, and then one member of this committee actually, thwarted that effort to override the veto, or else we would have had this program. So I think if the legislature, thought that this program, the H107, was ready for prime time and the best program, then I think it speaks to the wisdom of legislatures past.
And that's fair. That represented the compromise that went through the process. My feeling when we're working on this is the proposal that was in front of us. And if I thought, and we worked on the language so far as a committee, my expectation is that every committee is going to put their stamp on it, and that there will be further compromise down the road that we will work with and express our opinions on. But it's incumbent on us incumbent on us in our conversations to come up with the best bill for this committee. And we'll see how it goes through the process. I'm not saying it's not going to end up somewhere in between. But 4 years have passed, and the sad part about 4 years passing is that had it passed, it would be going into effect this year.
I also think the fortunate thing about 4 years passing is that the Commerce Committee has done a significant amount of this work in other places in those 4 years. They've, had a trust fund that was one of the healthiest in the nation. It got depleted by more than half. We're one of the only states that has not put any federal dollars to backfill our trust fund, meaning that our employers are actually backfilling our trust fund at their own cost for layoffs that they did not cause. They were part of a stay home, stay safe order, but they will be backfilling that trust fund to the tune of $300 million over the next 10 years. That's entirely on employers, and employers are willing to do that. I think some folks would be happy to certainly see federal funds backfill that obligation, but I think employers are willing to step up and say this is what had to be done for the good of public health. But I think, the Commerce Committee is threaded a needle on how to backfill that, how to build a trust fund that can survive, really rainy days, and how it can be built back responsibly outside of those times. So I think that Commerce is really a fantastic asset, and I'd hope that this body would use that asset.
But we will see where the bill goes next. Traditionally, it goes to Ways and Means. It's possible that we can do a drive-by with Commerce. If they're interested, that would be arranged either through this committee or through the next committee of jurisdiction. And see if they wanted at the very least, a drive-by on the bill. So thank you for the suggestion. Further questions or comments?
Have any at this point?
Well, I appreciate you coming back in and sharing your information with us. And we will, again, continue to work on this. And again, I'm sure we'll see the bill at some level, whether it's by drive-by or throughout the process. But, we have your information and we know where to find you for more testimony.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Austin.
Thanks, Austin.
Ron, did the text of the bill come through yet?
Yes, it's posted.
Okay.
Arthur sent you a link.
I got it today.
Do we want paper copies ordered for this version?
I don't.
If anybody would like them, we can order them now and
I would like one.
Yeah. Same.
Yes, I would too.
we just need a first person.
Yes, and I would as well. But I'd like them printed on
5.
both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stick with
Could I
you.
get one as well?
6 copies.
Thank you.
And I know Sadia always likes paper copies.
There you go.
Yep.
Representative Lamont likes
Seven
paper
copies.
copies.
Why don't you make 10? I don't,
Nice round number.
actually, yes, make one for everyone on the committee because.
Yeah.
Damien's gonna need one. Maybe.
I hope not.
Okay, 13 copies. Done. It'll take a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so let's, and Damien is due back here when? 10?
Yes, sir. Thereabouts.
So why don't we go ahead and, just take this as, well, we'll take a break till 10, take it as reading time. I'd like to read it on the electronic copy beforehand, just to be prepared to work. Then we'll work from 10 to 10:30 and see how far we get through it. And then we'll come back